to a new live stream of Flower Circus. Today we're going to talk with Matti Arielle. He's the director of Decofresh. He's going to talk about his company and what's going on in Kenya. So let's hear from Matti what he has to say. Matti, welcome.
All right. Hello. Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
First of all, how are you?
Well, I'm healthy. Family's okay. That's the most important thing these days. So it could be worse. So, but yeah, as we know, business is challenging these days.
Yeah, it is actually. It is, and it's all over the world. So there's no exceptions anymore.
No.
So tell us more for the people who don't know Decofresh. Can you tell me more about Decofresh?
Well, Decofresh started out basically as let's say, an unpacking company, processing flowers from imported flowers and preparing them for the auction.
Yeah.
We exist now for almost 17 years. We now specialized in, I would say, roses. We are very active now in not just in auction sales, but also in direct sales. We see ourselves becoming much more of a global company. We have an office in Kenya, Nairobi, which supports our sales office in Holland. And we do trading sales worldwide.
Okay, so you got two sales offices, both in Kenya and in Holland.
Yes.
Okay, and how is that divided? Is it Holland for the people who are in and around the auction, or Europe and Kenya?
Well, we basically work in two ways, because still I would say 70% of the flowers produced from the farms, from let's say 11 farms that we mostly work with, are going to the auction.
Yeah.
So we have daily shipments. Out of that, before it's airlifted, we put it online. So we start already with what we call the daily trading.
Yeah.
Up until the moment that it's auctioned. Other than that, we work with pre-orders. We have, depending on the destination, depending on what the customer needs, we do pre-orders. So that's basically how we work.
Yeah. And you talked about 11 companies. Which ones are that? Or because they are auctioned under their own name, right?
Yes, I probably some of them are quite well known. It's Amor and Omang, Akina, Ayana, Alicia, Bliss, Dale, Tiara. Those are probably the most ones that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah.
Generally high altitude, I would say high segment roses, mostly for events and for weddings, florists.
Yeah. Can you tell me about the high altitude? Because some florists, some people still don't know why it's so important to grow at a high altitude.
Well, I don't say it's important. I think it's just a different type of marketing strategy, and depending on what the customers want, because it comes with challenges. High altitude generally has a different type of climate, which gives you larger heads, maybe less production, more of I would say, a quality flower, as opposed to flowers which you see maybe in the retail, which are slightly smaller and slightly more of a commodity, so to speak. Where there is some overlapping between the two. I wouldn't say it was so clear cut as I just said. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the situation at the moment in Kenya?
Well, there's a lot of confusion, like the rest of us in the world. I mean, they were a little bit behind us in the way they responded to the outbreak of the virus. As if you're looking at the virus itself, but I would say about 3 weeks ago, when I think I probably pinpointed it down to Friday the 13th of all days, where everything in the flower business seemed to go to a standstill. A lot of panic. The response of this was that I think everybody let off a lot of staff or put them on certain conditions to reduce costs. I think at least 30,000 people, which is quite a lot, were put on, or say, temporary redundancy. Same, a lot of things here happen in Holland as well. We were all pushed to work from home. A lot of growers went back to maintaining the crop with minimal staff, or even cutting out or removing some, let's say, less performing varieties. because there was no market. But it seemed that, in a way that helped us a little bit out with forming some direct sales and some pre-orders because there was no clock supply. The
Yeah.
auction also responded the same way. They also limited the supply. But then, when the dust of this all kind of started to settle a little bit, some trades started to pick up. But that brought in another challenge because the capacity vanished or the supply vanished. The freight forwarders and the freight carriers moved their aircraft, either grounded their fleets, or because a lot of the flowers are shipped on passenger flights. Some flights, cargo flights, are still continuing to come to Holland. It means that there was still a bit more demand, but there was no way to get the flowers out to the destinations.
Yeah.
That was the response in Europe. But then other destinations like the Middle East or South Africa, Asia, excluding China, of course, was still open. But when we were starting to turn into those destinations, they started closing down because they were also following us by a few weeks.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of the situation at the moment. Then the restrictions came in Kenya as well when a few cases were discovered.
Yeah.
And Africa being Africa, it has a lot of advantages and good things about it, but it tends to respond to crisis in a totally different way than it does in Europe. I mean, each country handles its crisis in a different way. But let's keep hoping that it stays the way it is and doesn't get out of hand like it has done in some other countries.
So, what do they have any measures to at the growers so the disease doesn't spread? Because in Colombia, for example, they have to disinfect their hands in every room they go. How's that in Kenya at the moment?
Well, I think generally farms, flower farms, but I would say fruit and veg anyway, have their own, because it's consumable, have measures anyway. And flowers are not that far behind it. So I think it's pretty easy for them to, on the farm themselves, especially with the reduced staff, to take those kind of measures. It's also declared as an essential, the flower business in Kenya. So the government is allowing logistics and employment.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem there. I do see more of a problem of using the public transport, and the living conditions in Africa are totally different from the way they are here. They were talking about the Italian and Spanish demographics of young and old. Well, you can imagine in Africa, it's on another level.
Yeah.
So there's a big concern that the pandemic will break out there as well, especially in the low economy people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking about that some growers they removed some crop. Are they planting already, or are they waiting to plant? Or
I don't think anybody's planting anything at the moment. I did hear that some farms were ordering fruit and vegetable crops as for the local market because there could be some kind of shortage of fruit and veg.
yeah,
Not so much to export, because I don't think you can just become a fruit and veg exporter without filling all the requirements. But again, we're only 3 weeks into this crisis, but we just have to see how things are going.
yeah. It's only 3 weeks, but it feels like 3 months, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the plans now for the future? I mean, I know you as a person who always looks in a positive way to the future.
Yeah.
So, how do you look at it? How does do you think the market will change, or this crisis will it change the market?
Well, I think, like you said, the first important thing is to try and stay positive. If you can't influence everything that's happening outside. It's like a tsunami has hit us, and you sometimes just have to ride the flow, the current, and try and steer yourself as much as possible without getting hit by debris or hitting something, or drowning. So I think that's important to stay a positive mentality and trying to inspire that through your whole organization. That's one. It starts with that, I think. Secondly, to make too many plans ahead, I find it very difficult because we just don't know where it's going and how long it's going to continue.
Yeah.
The more this is prolonged, the more financial challenges we are going to encounter, whether it be customers or or suppliers, we will start feeling the pressure on that the coming weeks. Because, like I said, it's only been 3 weeks. When you start getting into a month, 2 months, the cash flows start dwindling, and that's when conflicts can arise. So we just have to try and be patient, and it's about cooperation. It's when you're surviving, you have to cooperate. And try to get through this together. It will change the business, I think. I can't make too many speculations, but to me, it will only expedite what was already a trend of more direct lines between supplier and buyer. If you look at it in very, very broad terms and compare the flower sector to other businesses, where everything is e-commerce, there's a lot more efficiency in the logistics side of it. Of course, it's perishables. I know that. I know all the reasons why the way it is, but it's been a very conservative market. And I think this will probably expedite things, because it means it's like a clean slate. It cleans the table across the board, from the grower side all the way through the whole chain. It will open up the door to new opportunities, new alliances, new joint ventures. So in many ways, I'm maybe it's not going to be wrong, looking forward to the day after to see what we can do to recover from this.
I think we have a lot to do still in e-commerce, from growers, breeders until the florist. I mean, for a long time we were always saying that flowers will sell themselves. But on e-commerce, we can smell them, we can touch them. The picture of a computer also looks nice on e-commerce when you're selling it at a web shop. I think there's going to be a big challenge. What I see, you are already promoting all your varieties with some quite nice arrangements and pictures on Facebook and Instagram. How are you going to do this in the future? Is it going to change, or?
Well, I think so. I mean, we've always tried. First, I think there's always been a concern for companies like ourselves to reach out deeper into the chain, because you don't really want to step on the toes of your existing customers. The way we saw it was, it's not like we necessarily want to sell to the florist. We're not really built for that. Everybody has a role in this. But I think there was a break on information. And I think, of course, your involvement also in some of the projects we've worked on, and you're aware of some we worked on, that we wanted to reach out to the florists to let them know what's available. But then again, it relies a lot on what's happening from the source as well. I mean, the growers, I think, also need to be a bit more involved in it and a bit more understanding. The more you communicate, the more you understand the customer's needs. And what they want. I mean, of course, everybody wants something new and different. But sometimes it gets kind of locked in through that, how would you say, conservative chain that we're in, with the grower, the exporter, the importer, the auction, the wholesaler. Even within the wholesaler, you have the buying department, the selling department. But there's just too many links in the chain, even as far as the flow of information.
No, there really is. I mean, but that's why you organize open days. You're at exhibitions, things like that. You join Flower Circus to show all the people the new varieties.
Yes.
I mean, this is one of your open days, I think. One of the pictures of your where you.
Yes. Yeah. We brought in we have several of these. So we've brought in we display everything, because one of the things we like to see is the wow factor. And I know we've done it in several places in the world. One of the most challenging markets for us is the US. Because of this easy supply, relatively supply, and well-established network coming from South America. And we did have an advantage with the assortment that we have, which they didn't have. And when we participated in shows, we got the wow factor from florists. The wow, it's just like fishing. You throw in your rod, and if you get bites, there's potential. There's fish in there, and there's potential. So we really wanted to try and capitalize on that wow factor. But then again, because of the channels, you need people who believe in it along the chain. It's not just enough the florists, but there's just so many links in the chain that and it's a matter of resources as well.
Yeah.
So I could say maybe now this new world that will be created in our especially in all businesses, but our business especially, new alliances. People will be more open to new ideas. I don't know. I just trying to have to look on the positive side and opportunities, and not on the negative side.
Yeah, but that's the only way we can look at it at the moment, I think, because we're 3 weeks in it now, and let's hope we're halfway.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's going to take a while. I think it's good to work on all the ideas you got, talk with both the suppliers, but also the customers, what we can improve, what has to be improved. Now is the time for it to do it. Once we get rolling again, we forget about all of it and work from day to day.
yes, exactly.
And that's something what was always there in the flower business, but that's why we also forgot to look forward and look what's happening at e-commerce, things like that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a point. I was just thinking on my mind that I've always been a advocator of introducing digitalization into our business, and I'm by no ways really an IT person, but I do see recognize the potential it can bring, and it comes back to again being that it's still very conservative type of business sector we're in. I think if we start at the source and work our way through, it's getting the right software packages, the ones that can talk with one another. Just too many custom-made or existing software which were good for back then, but are not up to date to. They're still old. We're still an old generation running this thing, as opposed to if you compare it to other sectors. We need a few more whiz kids in the flower industry to come up with up-to-date and refreshing ideas.
Yeah, a lot of systems are old, but everybody spends so much money on it, so they think, okay, let's keep this one because to spend again more money.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So I think there are ways to try and make it easier to, because it does, programming costs a lot of money, but we need to find something that is user friendly, easy to use, and doesn't cost so much in a sense. Maybe in subscription or some kind of fees, or to get the trade going in different ways. And I think if you show the results, then it's a lot easier to pay such an amount than to fork out an investment. They usually are talking about a large investments on this software because you need to customize it anyway, and you always go over budget.
Yeah, that's true. But I think more than ever now we realize that we have to do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I definitely think so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I learned a lot again.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for joining the show.
All right.
Is there anything
Thank you for having me.
To the story?
No, let's just, I think for everybody to keep a positive attitude and to, have a lot of tolerance and patience for one another during these hard times, because we need one another now. It's
more than ever.
More than ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matti, for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Tomorrow we will have Michael Black from Decofresh, live from Miami. So let's hear from him what's happening in the United States. I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Matti. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and hope to see you soon.
All right. Take care.